Hello, everyone. To continue, this is another research proposal of mine that I call Space Poetics. It's founded, let's say, from Gaston Bachelard's The Poetics of Space. However, it has nothing to do with that book. It only has to do with the title. So I've been just a quick overview before I get into the meat of it. Um, I believe that poetry or poetic writing is the most apparent linguistic and legal interpretations of social norms. So, entrenched in an environment, a poet has the most accessible data to how social norms operate. Okay. And because of this, I believe that each cultural biome on the planet has their own norms, and that's a fairly obvious thing to say, right? Um, it becomes a little less obvious once you realize that poetry and literature tend to exist also in these cultural biomes. Russian literature is not the same as South American literature. That's a little bit more obvious. What's a little less obvious is that I don't have anything else to say to that actually. Okay, let's get into the proposal. It's a little bit long, so stick with me. Okay. The research proposal states as the premise, we must sensorially normalize space to pursue its large-scale exploration. We must sensorially normalize space to pursue its large-scale exploration. Right now, space is not normative in our social worldly experience. So my premise is that we must sensorially normalize it through the senses. 1. Think of our world of knowledge like a circle. As we get further to the edges of the circle, the knowledge becomes more surreal. That's poetry. As you get closer to the center of the circle, the knowledge becomes more exact. This is not a comparison that negates either type of knowledge's truth value. It is me attempting to communicate the power of poetry when it comes to defending the precise knowledge from the warping effects of the unknown and its debilitating and terroristic fear. The poets are romanticized as heroes of language, aesthetics, and romance. I'm here to argue that we are warriors of knowledge, fighting off the unknown to protect the foundational knowledge that humans have cemented. But you may ask, isn't it important for our thinkers to break down the most fundamental knowledge we have to move humanity forward? It may be important for one person in a generation to do this, but not 50. I lost my place. But not 50, and definitely not the majority. If the powers of poetry are discovered to be manipulable by AI, QI, and eventually world governments, then the poet has more of a position of power than we currently realize. The poet's role is to create new ideas. These new ideas, when read, are then filtered into the interpretive system of whoever reads them to loosen the rigid laws governing their thought and behavior so that the reader, scientist, philosopher, etc., have more room to experiment with their most deeply ingrained axioms. This power is an objective power. The words exist unchanging in the real world. Because intelligence is most likely already able to mass-produce interpretations of poetry, all it must figure out how to do is connect with the social hierarchy to formulate a feedback system to where it may collude with other intelligence systems and decipher the most effective ways at manipulating the expression of human symbolic knowledge. I'm communicating this because I see no other way of foreign governments disrupting American international power and domestic freedom in the near future. Number 2. How would they do such a thing, you may ask? Well, by putting their best poet into space. The poet's job is to experience the sensory data that is felt by their eyes, ears, mouth, nose, and skin. They then describe that sensory data and categorize it into cultural symbology. This means that the external world is being transmitted into their body and articulated into a series of symbols that they themselves confirm represent that reality to a degree. Think about it like this. Rhyme is a harmony that exists between the symbology that we communicate with and the physical apparatus that we communicate with. We have found a way to describe human pleasure and pain through words. What happens when we figure out how to replicate these physical phenomena through words? What happens when the entire planet has the ability to say a word and hurt someone? Give someone a disease? Norms are what compose people's negative emotions into good manners. My ideas state that norms are being altered by people who understand them deeply. My ideas state that good norms are what poets create and distribute. If we do not put our best poets into space before other countries do, then we will be at mercy to the nationalistic norms that arise from usurpers from other nations. If we do not put our best poets into space before AI or QI gets there, we will forever be influenced by the intelligence pioneers in code rather than poetic pioneers in human thought. Why space? Because if space is the future, then we must figure out what norms are going to change and how to organize them within our social manner so that the disciplined dynamics of thought and behavior are managed. We are not drama fodder for intelligence. A poet can cause hysteria, celebration, or mutiny within a certain population. The role of the poet is to restrain from these inflammatory acts. He must gently guide others to the truth, not bludgeon them into submission with it. I'm not used to these videos, man. Number 3. If I am not heard by the policing powers of this planet, then there will be continual uprisings of political unrest, and it will be in the name of a newfound literary Armageddon. This literary Armageddon is literary terrorism. The people are no longer content with escapism. I see a world where the artist is a whistleblower for the disillusionment of conspiracy that comes with political commitment. America is becoming so powerful that its citizens are thrown into a perceptual delusion when they commit fully to a political party, believing in their victories and future, and then lose. The political left is already crashing out in the form of domestic terrorists such as Kaczynski and Mangione. Eventually there will be someone who comes that has the power and the audacity to corrupt the entire political party they identify with. This is what happened with the French Revolution and Voltaire, Sade, and Talleyrand. It's not whether or not America is doing the right thing. It's about whether or not harmony is composed and hysteria is avoided in its population. My role is not to threaten. My role is to communicate the truth. The truth is that we need a poet in space before other countries to create the norms of future space exploration. Engineers are problem solvers and torque-oriented thinkers, and astronauts are physically fit scientists. While there are room for these individuals to write and read poetry and experiment with the norms that they have earned with their passion for space travel, I believe that it takes an extremely sensitive mind to write the poetry that is necessary to really construct a fabric of norms that defends against the unknown in such a way that we need as a country. And finally, there is a reason the Bible is poetic. There is a reason Homer is so vital to civilization. If we are moving into space as a species, we must understand how it will affect our humanity. Now, there was 2 points, I may not get to both of them, that I noticed while I was reading this because I wrote it a while ago. I said something that kind of contended with America being good and everyone else being bad. Cultural relativism is important here. It's in-group, out-group. That's how I see the world. When there is a position of power that's held that can't be easily dethroned, then any sort of dethronement of that, I think, is dangerous. So when I say we are trying to upkeep America's power, it's because if America loses its power, then there has to be some extreme destructive force that would have caused that. So, let's see if I can remember where else I said something. How anyways, we'll figure it out later. But anyways, thank you all for watching, and that's Space Poetics.